There is a quiet truth that often goes unspoken when people describe you as strong. Because what they see as resilience was not something you chose or pursued, but something that slowly took shape when there were no safer alternatives available to you at the time. You did not become strong because you were ambitious or determined to grow, but because weakness was not an option, because slowing down carried risks, and because waiting for support could mean being left alone with responsibilities you were not ready to carry. In those moments, strength was not a personal achievement, but a response to circumstances that demanded steadiness before you had the chance to develop it naturally, shaping you through necessity rather than intention. You learned to adapt quickly, to stay composed, and to keep moving forward not because you wanted to, but because stopping would have created more uncertainty than you could afford, making strength feel less like a trait and more like a requirement. This kind of strength does not arrive with pride or confidence, but with alertness, control, and the quiet understanding that you must hold things together on your own, often without acknowledgement or relief. Over time, this survival-based strength becomes woven into who you are, making it difficult to remember what it would feel like to rest without guilt or to soften without fear. Because being strong has been tied to staying safe rather than becoming whole. By naming this truth, not to praise or criticize it, but simply to recognize it, you begin to see that your strength did not emerge from growth or desire, but from the conditions you had to endure, and that understanding this distinction is the first step toward relating to your strength with honesty rather than obligation. For many people, the idea of allowing weakness never truly existed. Not because they rejected vulnerability, but because the environments they grew up in did not offer the safety required to fall apart, pause, or ask for help without consequence. In these early spaces, there was often no one consistently available to lean on, no reassurance that someone else could carry part of the weight, and no room for uncertainty, which quietly taught you that relying on yourself was the most reliable way to remain stable. You learned, sometimes before you had the language to understand it, that showing need could create more problems than it solved, and that breaking down would only increase the burden you were already managing, making emotional restraint feel like a form of responsibility rather than suppression. As a result, you were required to grow up faster than your nervous system was prepared for, adapting to roles and expectations that demanded maturity, composure, and endurance long before you had the chance to develop a sense of inner safety. This early adaptation did not come from exceptional inner strength, but from a lack of external support, shaping you through necessity rather than resilience, and teaching you to function under pressure as a way of maintaining order in unpredictable or emotionally sparse environments. Over time, this pattern became internalized, making it difficult to distinguish between who you were and who you had to become. Because strength was never something you cultivated freely, but something that emerged where softness was not protected. By understanding that your strength formed in response to insufficient support rather than excess inner power, you can begin to see that what sustained you then was survival, not growth, and that the absence of safety, not the abundance of resilience, was the condition that shaped you. When strength is practiced repeatedly under pressure, it no longer remains a conscious response to difficulty, but gradually turns into an automatic pattern that activates without your permission, shaping how you think, feel, and react long before awareness has a chance to intervene. You begin to handle things on your own by default, not because you prefer independence, but because your system has learned that self-reliance is the fastest and safest way to regain control, making asking for help feel inefficient, risky, or simply unfamiliar. In moments of stress or emotional pain, calm arrives almost instantly, not as peace, but as containment, because you have learned how to regulate yourself by suppressing visible reactions, keeping your tone steady, and moving forward as if nothing has disrupted you, even when something inside has been deeply affected. This composure can be convincing, both to others and to yourself, because it allows life to continue uninterrupted, reinforcing the belief that you are handling things well, while quietly bypassing the need to process what has actually happened. Over time, this pattern becomes so ingrained that strength no longer feels like something you do, but something you are, operating beneath conscious choice like a system running in the background, managing emotions, decisions, and relationships automatically. In this state, vulnerability is not actively avoided, but passively excluded, because the internal mechanisms that once protected you from overwhelm now filter out softness, dependence, and emotional expression before they can surface. This is the point where strength stops being a behavior you can step into or out of, and becomes the operating system of your inner world, efficient and reliable, yet costly, because it keeps you functioning while slowly distancing you from the full range of your human experience. The cost of always being strong does not announce itself loudly or arrive in a single defining moment, but unfolds quietly in the present, shaping how you feel, relate, and move through your days in ways that are easy to overlook and difficult to name. Emotional exhaustion becomes a constant background state, not dramatic enough to stop you, yet persistent enough to drain color and vitality from experiences that once felt meaningful, leaving you capable of functioning while feeling increasingly distant from genuine engagement or joy. As this fatigue settles in, it becomes harder to identify what you actually need, because the habit of endurance has trained you to override inner signals rather than respond to them, making questions like, "What would help right now?" feel vague or unanswered, even in moments of stillness. This disconnection deepens when strength continues to shape your relationships, as others remain close to you while never fully reaching you, because the version of you they interact with is composed, reliable, and self-contained, leaving little indication that support or care would be welcomed. In this way, loneliness can exist even in the presence of connection, not because you lack people, but because your strength has quietly limited how much of you is available to be seen, understood, or held. The invisible cost here is not rooted in what happened long ago, but in what is happening now, as the ongoing requirement to stay strong continues to consume emotional energy, blur self-awareness, and restrict intimacy in subtle but accumulating ways. This cost lives in the present moment, in the daily effort of maintaining composure, in the unanswered needs beneath functionality, and in the quiet realization that strength, when it is never allowed to soften, can keep you moving forward while slowly separating you from yourself and from the depth of connection you may still long for. There comes a point in healing where strength is no longer measured by how much you can endure, how long you can hold everything together, or how effectively you can silence your own needs in order to keep functioning, but by your willingness to recognize when endurance has begun to cost more than it gives. This shift requires a different kind of courage, because stopping, resting, or admitting the need for care can feel more threatening than continuing, especially when strength has been the primary way you have stayed safe, respected, or needed in the world. In redefining strength, you begin to notice that constantly pushing through discomfort is not the same as stability, and that resilience loses its meaning when it prevents you from responding honestly to fatigue, sadness, or the desire for closeness. Chosen strength emerges when you allow yourself to pause without guilt, to soften without fear, and to acknowledge that being supported does not diminish your value, but restores parts of you that have been strained by years of self-reliance. This form of strength does not demand that you abandon responsibility or capability, but invites discernment, helping you sense when to continue and when to stop, when to give and when to receive, and when holding on is no longer an act of wisdom. By learning to accept love, care, and reassurance without immediately trying to earn them, you begin to experience strength as something that expands your capacity for connection rather than restricting it. The transition from forced strength to chosen strength is subtle and gradual, unfolding in small moments where you choose honesty over performance and presence over endurance, allowing strength to become a supportive resource rather than a constant state of tension. In this redefinition, strength no longer requires you to brace against yourself, but allows you to move forward with awareness, flexibility, and the quiet confidence that you do not have to suffer in order to be strong. There is a quiet relief in realizing that nothing about you needs to be fixed, because what you are experiencing is not a flaw or a failure, but the natural result of having carried more than your system was ever meant to hold for an extended period of time. You are not broken for feeling depleted, distant, or unsure of yourself, and you are not behind for needing rest now. Because fatigue is not evidence of weakness, but a signal that strength has been asked to perform without enough softness to balance it. In this recognition, there is no demand to change who you are or to become someone different. Only an invitation to allow yourself to soften just enough to feel what has been held back, without forcing resolution or rushing toward improvement. Softening does not mean giving up your strength, but allowing it to exist without pain, without constant tension, and without the belief that endurance must always come at the cost of comfort or care. This newer understanding of strength does not require suffering to prove its worth, nor does it ask you to push past your limits in order to be valid. Because strength that no longer hurts is not weaker, but wiser. By simply acknowledging your tiredness without judgment, you create space for your experience to be met with honesty rather than resistance. And in that space, understanding can unfold naturally, without effort or instruction. This content is for educational and reflective purposes only. It is based on real-life experiences and personal growth journeys, shared to invite awareness, not conclusions. We encourage kind, respectful discussion and constructive comments. If this reflection resonates, you are invited to continue with the next piece in this series. Why rest feels uncomfortable to you, where we gently explore how stepping back can sometimes be a form of self-protection rather than withdrawal. If this reflection resonates, you are invited to continue with the next piece in this series. Why rest feels uncomfortable to you, where we gently explore how stepping back can sometimes be a form of self-protection rather than withdrawal.